Summary of it by Stephen King. It is the fall of 1957 and it has been raining for a whole week, which has resulted in the streets of Derry, Maine, becoming flooded. Bill Denbrough, who is 10 years old, helps his younger brother, George Denbrough, who is 6 years old, make a watertight paper boat so that George can go play in the rain. George has to go to the basement, which he hates, to get paraffin wax for the boat. George gets to the basement door, opens it, and stands at the top of the stairs, sure that it is hiding somewhere down there. He goes downstairs, where he finds the wax can. George looks at the turtle on the box's lid for a while and wonders where he has seen it before. George wakes up from his thoughts when Bill calls him and brings up the materials. George admires his brother as he makes the boat watertight. George gives him a kiss before he leaves to show his appreciation. Bill will not see his younger brother again. George runs after his boat as it speeds through the street's floods. The boat drifts toward a storm drain, where it gets stuck. George looks down the drain and sees two bright eyes looking back at him. The eyes then change color to blue, like George's mother's eyes. The eyes belong to a clown who calls himself Mr. Bob Gray, also known as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. The clown tells George that he and his band were swept into the drain by the storm. George leans in and smells sweet smells mixed with the smell of dirt and dead things. George is given his boat and a kite that floats. As George reaches out, the clown's eyes change, and Pennywise pulls the boy into the dark, ripping George's arm out of its socket. The boy is killed right away. Dave Gardner, a neighbor, runs out of his house and takes George's body back to the Denbrough house. Now it's 1984. Adrian Mellon, a gay man, is beaten to death and thrown off the kissing bridge into the canal. Christopher Onwin, Steve Dubé, and John Webby Garton are among the young people who attack Mellon and his partner, Don Haggerty. Chris Onwin says he saw a clown drag Mellon under the kissing bridge. Haggerty says there were thousands of balloons of different colors under the same bridge. Mike Hanlon, the head library in his town, calls 6 old friends to tell them about the murder and the strange clown. The first call goes to Stanley Uris's house in a neighborhood of Atlanta. Stanley and his wife, Patricia Uris, are watching TV on May 28, 1985, in the evening. Stanley gets an evening bath because of the call, which his wife finds strange. When Patricia goes to check on him, she finds that the door is locked. When she opens the door, she finds Stanley dead in the tub, with his blood making the water red. He wrote "IT" in his blood on the tile on the wall. The next call goes to Richard Tozier, who is now a radio host in Los Angeles. While Richie makes plans with Carol Feeney, his trip assistant, the famous architect Ben Hanscom gets a call. Hanscom lives in Nebraska. Ben goes to the bar he goes to often, the Red Wheel, to have what he thinks may be his last drink. This is about the time that Eddie Casbrack's phone rings. Eddie, who runs a chauffeuring business, asks his wife Myra to pick up and drive Al Pacino around Manhattan instead of him. Myra, who is like Eddie's mother Sonia in that she is too watchful, begs Eddie not to leave, but he does it anyway. In Chicago, dress designer Beverly Marsh Rogan gets a call in the middle of the night. She tells Tom Rogan, her husband, that she has to go. Tom tells her she can't go, and they get into a fight. This time, Beverly doesn't want to follow her physically abusive husband, whose habits are similar to those of her father, so she uses the belt he usually uses on her to beat him. She is in such a hurry to get out of the house that she forgets to take her wallet with her. She is able to get the money she needs to get back to Derry with the help of her friend Kay McCall. The last call goes to author Bill Denbrough, who is in England with his wife, actor Audra Phillips, where they are making a movie version of one of his books called Attic Room. Mike Hanlon is the only person who has stayed in Derry, which has 35,000 people. He keeps track of local stories and acts as the town's watchman, keeping an eye out for it. In 1958, he and 6 friends sent it away. They were called the Losers Club. After 27 years, he tells them it's time to finish the work they started. They have to kill it to stop it from scaring the people of Derry. every person in the Losers Club has something about them that makes it hard for them to fit in. Ben is fat and eats too much because his single mother, Arlene Hanscom, is afraid of being poor. Bill has a stutter and doesn't talk to his parents or his friends. Eddie's mother is a hypochondriac who is too worried about him and has told him that he has asthma. Beverly comes from a poor home where she was abused. Richie comes from a good family, but his sarcastic sense of humor annoys almost everyone by accident. Mike and Stanley come from more stable and loving homes, but because they are Black and Jewish, they don't fit in with other people. Another thing that brings the group together is that, since George Denbrougha's death, none of them has any brothers. This makes it easy for them to get along with each other. The important thing that ties them together, though, is that each of them has a story about it. Richie was the last person to see it. It appeared to him as a werewolf, like the monster in the movie I Was a Teenage Werewolf, which he watches at the Aladdin Theater. He and Bill ride Silver, Bill's bike, away from the monster. The kids in the Losers Club don't get killed by it when they are young, but many other children are found dead or go missing. One of them, Edward Corcoran, stays lost until the 1960s, when his mother says he is officially dead. Like Beverly, Edward comes from a home where people hurt each other. Richard Macklin, his dad, hits him and his brother Dorsey all the time, which is what killed Dorsey. The members of the Losers Club know that Richard is not to blame for Edward's death. They can tell this when Edward dies. An animal that is half fish and half frog attacks and kills Edward. Mike Hanlon finds Edward's pocketknife and blood spots next to the bench that Edward fell over while trying to get away the night he was killed. The kids find out that it can change its form. The group also learns that it is a talus, which is what people in the Himalayas call a skin changer. Mike has seen it take the shape of a huge bird that looked like a bird that once pecked him when he was a child. At the house on 29 Neibolt Street, Eddie sees it change into a leprous vagrant. Bill, looking through George's old photo book, makes George's eyes move in one of the pictures. Henry Bowers, the violent bully who breaks Eddie Casbrack's arm and carves the letter H, the first letter of Henry, into Ben Hanscom's gut, sees a Frankenstein monster rip the heads off of his friends and fellow bullies, Victor Criss and Reginald Belch Huggins. At the same time, Beverly hears sounds coming from the drains of the kitchen and bathroom sinks. In one case, a rush of blood comes out of the pipes and covers the walls. Only she and her friends can see the blood. Her father, Al Marsh, can't. Later, she sees mutant leeches attack and kill Patrick Hocksetter. The kids learn that it is not just a scary thing in their time, but that it has always been there in Derry. It is there when Derry changes from a sleepy little shipbuilding town into a booming honky-tonk. In 1929, when the town sets up a trap for the Bradley gang, it is there and takes part in the fight. It is also there when the Black Spot is burned in 1930. White racists burned down the Black Spot, a bar started by Mike's father, Will Hanlon, Dick Halloran, and a few other black soldiers stationed in Derry. In 1958, Bill, Ben, and Richie plan to make a metal bullet to send it away. The movies teach them this. Beverly shoots it down a drainpipe with the help of a metal slug, a slingshot, and her great aim. They find out, though, that this only makes it run away. The only way to get rid of it for good is to do the ritual of Chud, which involves the attacker biting down on his or her tongue, which makes it bite its own tongue. Then the attacker makes jokes. If the attacker laughs first, it has earned the right to kill. It has to leave if it laughs first. The Losers Club is able to send it away, but not kill it, because of this right and Beverly's demand that the boys make love to her to make their group stronger. While the other kids in the Losers Club go on to have good lives as adults, Henry Bowers is locked up in Juniper Hills, a mental hospital for people who have done something wrong. He has been here since Bob Gray sent him a switchblade that he used to kill his father, Butch Bowers. Henry is also blamed for the deaths of his friends Victor and Belch, as well as Veronica Grogan, whose underwear was found under Henry's mattress. It gets him out of the hospital one night and brings him back to Derry. Henry first finds Mike in a public library, where he and Mike get into a knife fight that leaves Mike with a cut on his thigh and is almost dead. Mike sees that it has taken over Henry and is using him as a dog's body, or helper. Then, Henry goes to Eddie's hotel room in the townhouse. With a letter opener, Eddie is able to kill Henry. Tom Rogan and Audra Phillips both followed their husbands to Derry, where they stay in rooms next to each other without knowing it. Each of them has a dream that night. Tom has a dream that he is Henry and has killed his father. Audra thinks she is Beverly in her dreams. When Audra wakes up, she thinks that Bill is with someone else. He really did spend the night with Beverly. Eddie calls Bill's room to tell him that he killed Henry. The group also finds out that Mike was hurt and is in the hospital getting better. When the five are back together, they work together to save Mike from a nurse named Mark LaMonica who had been taken over by it and was trying to kill Mike with a gun. Tom has also been taken over by it, and it is using him to take Audra. That night, the 5 members of the Losers Club who are still alive, Bill, Ben, Richie, Beverly, and Eddie, enter its lair and find that it has changed into a huge female spider. The turtle is also there in the dark. The turtle talks to Bill and says he's sorry that he and the rest of the world made it after he threw up from a stomachache. Richie looks up into its web and sees Audra there. She has stopped moving and looks almost like a wax figure. Richie acts like an Irish cop to make it laugh. Bill is saved by the routine, but Eddie loses his arm after the spider bites off his arm. Eddie later dies. While Ben steps on its eggs, Bill squeezes its heart until it pops. It dies. It is now morning in Derry, and for some strange reason, the town is shaking. Downtown Derry and the basement part of the canal's structures fall down. The glass walkway between the adult library and the children's library blows up. The 4 remaining members of the Losers Club come out from where they were hiding. Bill sees that his speech problem is getting better. Mike sees that he is starting to forget things. Ben and Beverly move to Nebraska to start their new life together. Bill is also beginning to forget things. He doesn't remember what caused Audra to become catatonic, but he is determined to get her out of it. He gets on Silver with Audra behind him and rides away from memory, but not from desire. He pushes down on the pedals, moving the bike so quickly that it wakes up Audra. Mike has the last word, and he thinks no one will ever look at his diary. He comes to the conclusion that even if the group forgets about each other when they are awake, they might remember everything, especially how much they love each other, in their dreams.
About the author. Stephen King was born to Donald King and Nellie Ruth Pillsbury King. When he was young, his parents split up. He and his older brother, David, moved back and forth between Fort Wayne, Indiana, where his dad's family lived, and Stratford, Connecticut, before settling in Durham, Maine. King started writing when he was 6 or 7, and comic books and movies had a big impact on him. King finished high school in 1966 and went on to college at the University of Maine at Orono. He wrote a piece for the school newspaper and took part in protests against the war. King was taken out of the draft because he had health problems that made him unfit to serve. In 1970, he got a Bachelor of Arts in English, which made him qualified to teach high school. He met his wife, Tabitha Spruce, at a university library around this time, and they got married in January 1971. Tabitha King also writes suspense novels. Before becoming an English teacher at a high school in the fall of 1971, King did odd jobs. In the same year, he sold his first short story to a men's magazine and kept writing stories in the nights. He also started writing the first of his books. After he signed a deal with Doubleday in 1974, the first book to come out was Carrie. King is known as one of the most productive and well-known American writers of the 20th century. His books have been turned into a lot of popular movies and TV shows. One of these, The Shining, is based on his own battles with drinking and his family's short stay at a hotel in Boulder, Colorado. King still lives in rural Maine, the setting of many of his books and short stories.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.